Well, they're trending in the right direction there in Jackson County. At least the legislature is trying, it seems like, to do the right thing by the taxpayer. Manny Abarca is on the Jackson County legislature. He joins us on KCMO after they took care of some business yesterday after a couple of weeks of back and forth. Manny, good morning. Thanks for being on KCMO Talk Radio. What'd you guys get done yesterday there at the legislature?
We were able to finally pass a version of SB 190 that we thought was a good practice to put in place.
Okay, so what does that do? I know it helps seniors out, but for those that maybe missed the news yesterday, what exactly will be put in place for them, and how will they be able to benefit from this?
Yeah, so for those taxpayers that have a market-valued house under $550,000, it provides them a freezer at the 2023 tax rate from the time that they meet 62. And so that provides a fair approach to this, giving those that need it the most the opportunity to freeze their taxes.
Okay, so that's a pretty good deal for folks, of course, but it only does apply to seniors. And no matter what happens on this assessment, it will apply and it will be relevant for this assessment. So for people who think that this is somehow going to drastically change this process of what's been in place, that's not the case. It just tries to give them some relief going forward.
That's correct. I mean, there's unfortunately no way for us to impact the failed assessment that went on this year. We've tried to plead with the administration. We've demanded the administration to make changes, and so far nothing's relented.
Why do you think that is?
You know, I could think of every trying political reason why you'd want to make this work, and I can't understand why the administration is not reacting to the needs of the taxpayers. This is so detrimental to many, many folks out there, and it's an unfair and unjust assessment.
Mm-hmm. No, it is, and it seems like, finally the county leader, the county executive, did show up to your meeting last week, but did anything really come of that of note?
No, he didn't want to respond to questions. We kind of received vague answers from the assessor, nothing that was coming to light in form of solutions. And this is why we called on the state auditor to come in and hold them accountable, because they're not being accountable to us, the legislative body. It's supposed to be a balanced form of government, and it's not.
Yeah, well, I mean, that brings up my next point, which is if they're not doing their job, I know you want to bring in the state auditor, but is there anything legally as a legislature you're able to do on that front, or no?
We've explored all options. We've thought about defunding the offices. Unfortunately, through the assessment department, they're somewhat self-funded. They're funded through the collection of taxes themselves, and so they're nearly 90% self-regulated. So they're not really that concerned about us cutting their budget. When it comes to the county executive, we cannot force him to act. We've attempted to give him many ways and paths forwards that would provide relief to folks, and he's not acting. So it's disappointing.
Do you see anything that can be done? I mean, you've got now municipalities, by the way, as you know, suing technically you, the county, since you're on the legislature. And I know that you're sympathetic, I would imagine, in large part to some of the issues that they have. But how do you balance this as someone who's on the legislature, as you are, Manny Abarca, trying to help the taxpayer, but also technically getting sued by cities like Lee's Summit and Independence?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. The city's directly named the county executive and the assessor. Now, obviously, they're suing the county at large, so I don't disagree with that. But I think it's the same kind of node as the state auditor. We're paying the state auditor to come in and do this audit to us. And so we're inviting justice to be sought here. And so we welcome more lawsuits and understand that there are several municipalities that are considering adding on here, because it is unfair and unjust, and it's not practical to then go and use the same failed assessment when you do your municipal tax levies or your taxing jurisdiction levies.
So, and just so I'm clear, like we had on somebody from Independence yesterday, and he said that they've got to set their mill levy rate by the end of this month, and they don't know what to do with the mill levy rate because there's still thousands of appeals out there on this assessment process. So what are they supposed to do?
Yeah, and I think that's why the lawsuits are levying the way that they are, and I hope they're asking for a quick judgment so that we know what to do and how to react, because we're going to set our own levies here in the next week. And so to try and understand how this is going to impact taxpayers on that November bill, it's critically important we figure this issue out now. And it's clear that the county executive is not going to act. So it only leaves the justice system's ability to impede here.
What could the county executive, I mean, I don't know if you've looked into this, but what would you like to see in a perfect world the county executive do? Just put a pause on the entire assessment process, start it over from scratch? I mean, what could he do in a perfect world?
Well, so there's some challenges here now that have gone into place because of the timing. So since the assessor has certified that this is a valid assessment, there's not much he can do. But prior to that, we were suggesting that he set aside the assessment, implement a flat up to 15% increase, and then work towards actually finding the appropriate values. I co-authored that legislation with my colleague Sean Smith in a bipartisan way to try and provide relief to folks as we found the true value. So I agree that we should get to that point, but it's got to be in a fair way. It can't be an unpredictable tax levy that's issued across the board.
Is there anything that you as a legislature can do regarding the assessor's office and the way that thing is being run?
I mean, I think at this point, the only thing I can do is propose that she go up for an election in coming years. And so we're working through state legislation to understand if we have that ability now to put her on the ballot, because we understand for for counties over 700,000 people, we're allowed to put on the assessor as an elected office. And that's what we're trying to figure out if we can do that. I think that's the only opportunity that it currently exists for us within the state legislative process. And then hopefully in January, this is a priority for the state legislature to take on complete property tax reform.
All right, Manny Abarca, Jackson County Legislator on KCMO. Thanks for being here, Manny. Appreciate the insight.
Thanks for having me, Pete.